Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean, broadcasting behind the blue iron curtain that is Northwest New Mexico. I've got extremely great news for you. Now, I've explained before on this podcast what a red pill is. That means you became a little more conservative or got out of the matrix. Blue pill means you became a little more liberal, went into the matrix a little farther. White pill is the pill of hope. And a black pill is totally nihilism. You think the world's going to end. And clown pill means that the world's gone nuts. In a weird bout of sanity, and you have to give credit where credit is due, this is probably due to Trump's getting some judges into the courts. We have extremely good news and a white pill moment for us. The bump stock ban has been overturned. And it was overturned with a 60-page ruling. Now, why is that important? Well, the 60-page ruling dived really deep into exactly what a machine gun is. Now, anyone in the 2A community has known forever what a SEER is. We all know what a machine gun is. And we should technically be allowed to own them. And we are to some extent, but only ones that were manufactured before 1986. We should be able to own anything, anytime, anywhere. That's my own opinion. Before I get into this story a little more, let me say this first off. I am a big fan of Tim Pool. I gave up my job mostly because of, I guess I can say I was fully red-pilled and was tired of being in the educational community. For 12 years I worked there, and I could see parts of the stuff I'm not a big fan of, slowly making it into districts even as conservative as mine, and that I don't agree with. So eventually you have to put it on the line, and some of us will, some of us won't. Those of you that will deny people, I ask you this: if you're a Christian, would you deny God? I say that because I have a friend, a very good listener, who's been dealing with some stuff. I'm not going to call him out. And my advice to him was pray. And why I say that as being a Christian person is that's always helped me. And it always seems to keep the bad things at bay. So, let's get back into this story. So the 60-page ruling, why is that a big deal? For them to define what a machine gun is in such minute detail coming from a court, this is kind of had to be done, in my opinion, by the help of someone from the ATF who's a good guy. And yes, there were some back in the gap that were on our side. How do you think the bump stocks got passed? How do you think the braces got passed, allowed to be in existence? It was people in the ATF. And while I demonize the ATF department in general, there is a core group of ATF dudes that really are trying to do what they're supposed to. Probably the same could be said about the FBI. Nowadays, I would say that police, law enforcement, there's probably equal amounts of bad ones as there are good ones, just like there are teachers. There are great teachers, and there are teachers that shouldn't be in the business. The sooner our society comes to grips with that, the better. So, one of the pieces of that 60-page ruling was Chevron deference. If you don't know what that means, it means that an organization or a department of the government, such as the ATF, the EPA, one of the alphabet guys, right? They cannot pass law legally, okay? A law has to be passed by Congress, and it has to be voted on. So the bump stock ban couldn't make it through Congress. Thank God for once. And why is that? It's because gun control, by and large, is a toxic issue for politicians. Why? Because most people during the COVID stuff realized that we were kind of on our own, especially after the Ferguson riots, when people realized that the cops sending a message saying, hey, we can't get to you, that's a real thing. What are you going to do in that case? But in that, where I was going with the Chevron deference is, they said in no unsure terms that the ATF didn't have the right to ban this by executive fiat, that they had to go to Congress. Now that sets us up for something like the pistol brace ban that the ATF is trying to push. these same rulings could be applied 100% to that. And now we have it in case law. So once they try to ban the the pistol braces, which is, I think, wider use than the bump stock. Now understand, I never cared for the bump stock. I've shot one. I've got to see what they're like. I saw it as a range toy. I don't really care because I knew you could do it with like a rubber band or a belt loop too if you wanted to. The point being is it's 2A. Why does it matter? You know, being the anarcho-capitalist that I am, or the libertarian part of me that has pretty much supplanted and killed all the conservative part in a lot of ways, this is a big deal. Telling the government no and having the government back off. You know, there is a point in time that we probably will have to stand up in force, be peaceful, and say, no, you're not taking this. And that may be sooner than later. And I say that because we have a group of people, and if you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on in Congress, that have found a way to get McCarthy in under some stipulations as a Speaker of the House. Now that gives the neocons access to the gun amendments and to pass those laws if we don't pay attention. So I hope to give you those earmarks. But think about what this ruling means. If they're willing to define in such great detail exactly what a machine gun is, that means that they now have it in case law. So things like a binary trigger, one of the things that they said in this is that one operation of the trigger. Now this is where the binary triggers may have some ground to stand, because it is technically just made to make split times for competition shooters slimmer. That said, it is considered a modification that I could see them going after, and they're going to continue to go after all of our rights, let alone anything that is arbitrary. The pistol brace ban is an attempt to try to keep people from not having short-barreled rifles or pistols, because they see that as a huge problem. The huge problem, I would say, has happened a long time ago with mental health in the United States. Specifically, as it's stigmatized, and we have a problem with it in other ways. If you also haven't heard, there was a 6-year-old who shot a first-grade teacher because of a disagreement in the classroom. Now, I have some issues, multiple issues with this, like everyone in the 2A community should. Number one, how did you let someone so young out of the house with a firearm? I understand having them out if you have one for defense that's by your bedstand, but shouldn't you know what your 6-year-old is doing? That's part of our problem with society right now, is we don't know what our kids are doing. Well, some of us don't. I do. I'm also very proud of my 18-year-old today. He is taking one of his really good friends to go purchase his first firearm. And he wanted my son to go with him to help him figure out what was best for him. Now, he's looking at a shotgun, and I've tried to tell him, there are better options for home defense, but for overall purposes, this is what he's decided on, and I'm not going to change it, because this is what the 2A is about, in my opinion. What the New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union is all about is spreading the 2A message to everyone. The 2A is for everyone, whether you're straight white male or the black single mom or the trans person who is trying to defend themselves so they don't get taken care of, don't get beaten up. No one should be on the opposite end of the power curve. And that's what I have always loved about the 2A community, is no one believes, we may not agree with you being that type of person. However, we believe fully you should be able to defend yourself and take care of yourself and have the rights to defend yourself. Now, with that, there are lots of repercussions of owning a firearm. Safe storage. That was passed under NDAA. It's been a thing in New Mexico. And what that basically says is if you don't have a safe and all your guns, including your home defense ones, are not locked up, they will find a way to go after you legally if they're used in such one of these events. That may include up to theft, so that's why, more so why I'm leaning towards you need to store your guns in a safe place, under lock and key, not only to keep kids out from getting them and to protect society in general, but protect your investment. Firearms aren't cheap. Even the most inexpensive one, like my son's friend is looking at getting into, they're not inexpensive, and neither is the ammunition upkeep and the training that's involved with that type of thing. And that's something that everyone in the 2A has to keep up. So for all those guys that keep thinking that the 2A community are just a bunch of redneck yokels, believe me, most of them spend more in ammunition, optics, and accessories just to get their gun to where they want it to be so they can use it correctly for defense, if they see a defensive point. Now, there are a lot of FUDs that will say all you need is a bolt-action rifle or a shotgun, and that'll scare people off. You do you, boo. I'm going to tell you that in today's society, technology is advanced. People like the AR-15. They like self-loading rifles. Not because they give them some sort of power curve, but because, well, it's modern-ish. And I say modern-ish. Self-loading guns have been around for over 100 years. The new iterations have just advanced the technology. Manufacturing, material sciences have all improved the 2A. We've gotten the benefits just like anyone else. And where I've always said that the 2A will exist no matter what they say, you can look at groups like Print, Shoot, Repeat. You can look at some other places that these guys have pretty much helped spread the 2A globally. You can be in China right now. If you didn't know, there are protests going on in China, Mexico, and Brazil right now against the government. Now, someone in Brazil, Bolsonaro, is kind of like a Trump guy. But for those of you that are Trump dudes that are like, hell yeah, we want Bolsonaro in, Bolsonaro wants a separation from the United States directly to go towards the BRICS. If you don't know what BRICS is like a conglomerate of states and cities, or countries specifically, for trading. Now, what they're trying to do is get off the American dollar. However, none of them can agree, and it's a bad plan for Brazil as it would be for anything else. The sad fact of the matter is, if you look at currency markets, the American dollar is the only one left in the game. No one wants yuan, no one wants rubles. So for all the BRICS talk and the American economy being supplanted by anyone else, that's not going to happen. I am more so concerned with our southern border buddies, and that's because of the cartel stuff heating up. And with that, that has the potential that if we have someone, like a couple Karens killed by something that they import here or for some reason by the cartels, expect government involvement. Now, right now, government involvement has gone chilly between the North and the South because, well, we've tried to enforce some things on the southern border, not necessarily on the border itself, but tell the Mexican people what to do. And that usually pisses people off, especially the guy that's the president of Mexico right now. Now, the president of Mexico right now, him and Biden don't get along. Him and Trump did. Why I'm concerned about the Mexican stuff is because we have a population bomb in the United States that we're going to need extra labor, and I'm not saying that as a bad way of getting Mexicans to do the labor, because I am Mexican. It is more so we need them as much as they need us. And it would be better if the cartels were taken care of one way or another so that that could happen, meaning that I would be even okay with the cartels, just like the mafia, quit being so aggressive and explosive. The mafia in the United States ended up getting curtailed enough. That's what kind of stopped some of the stuff. Now, you've seen the photos, I'm sure, and the videos coming out this weekend of the cartel guys using 50 cals to shoot at helicopters. That's because the Mexican military started getting involved to try to fight cartels, because they are believed to be the last bastion of no corruption in law enforcement south of the border. That's a problem. Excuse me. Cartels tend to buy their way into places and buy influence. And that works because, well, people are people. And getting paid is a hell of a lot better than getting killed. With that, Biden will be down there on the southern border today in Texas to talk about, I think, or tomorrow, to talk about the border crisis we've had with South American people crossing through Mexico and making it all the way to our southern border. I've never had a problem with immigration, but what is happening in the southern border is actually illegal immigration. No one there is actually coming here for any other reasons than financial, or they're being smuggled up here. And I would like to see the United States reform what it takes to be an American citizen, not to the fact that we take all of them in and do that stuff, give them amnesty, but more so we need to start looking at helping our own citizens before we help someone else. And we need to put those braces in for our people first before we go ahead and try to protect people that are coming up who aren't American citizens yet. We will need them in the future, but we should, for now and for the future, make sure they come here legally. We cannot support them with all the freebies that the government gives out, which is funny because as I'm unemployed right now, you would think I would be looking at those freebies, but that's a gateway of last resort. Because right now, why you're getting live podcasts is because this is me trying to stay busy and motivated. Podcasting will continue. It's also growing my audience a little bit by doing live. Thank you again for liking and sharing and subscribing to my podcast. Please spread the word of New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union because we are trying to keep New Mexico tactical. Those are the basic pieces of what I had. Don't worry about the protests. For all you guys worried about China coming here, how are the Chinese going to come here when they can't get past Japan? Their Navy can't go 1,500 miles without lots of support. Yeah, they could take Taiwan. Taiwan, if they took those fabs for microprocessors that everybody's worried about, all the tech design is done here. Also, the company that does most of that stuff in Taiwan is actually moving to the United States. TSMC is moving a manufacturing fab to the United States to help mitigate some of that. Should we help Taiwan? Absolutely. Do we have to get militarily involved? Only as so much as the Navy. I think we could put a carrier battle group in the area, and China couldn't fight a carrier battle group, a complete United States carrier battle group. You send two there, and they're sorely undergunned. Top that Japan, one of our closest allies, would probably, and they have a full blue water navy, they would probably do stuff too. None of this stuff could happen without India's approval, though, because India is the big boy on the block in the area. Now, I tell you all that stuff just to keep you abreast of the situation globally. Globally, we look at inflation. If you bought some eggs or bought some milk or bought anything from the grocery store, you've seen inflation hit us. Unfortunately, inflation is going to be here for a while, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. I think the reason why that has to do with our population bomb I talked about. Understand why there's a population bomb. There is Generation X, which is my generation. We're one of the smallest generations ever. Generation Z are my generation's kids, and they are the smallest generation the United States has ever populated or ever put out. Now, that's why I say that's going to be a problem. We have the millennial generation right now that is filling out our consumer stuff, but the biggest problem the United States faces is that the boomers, that group of generation anyway, is about to retire. And when they retire, they were our largest generation ever, and the world's largest generation ever. After World War II, people had kids, people relaxed. That has been the greatest boon and bane to our country. We now see them pulling out capital so that they're retiring. I'm one of those guys, I guess, because I'm retiring from where I was sooner rather than later, in a roundabout way. I'm pulling out my funds so I can start my business. With all of that, I hope you understand where we're at. We're in a very good place for the 2A. And as we progress, stick to your guns, keep talking to your people, your representatives, and telling them, hey, we want to keep New Mexico tactical. We'd like to keep the United States tactical for us and for all generations. Once again, thank you again so much for subscribing, liking, and listening. Be great. Have a great day.